Hey, what's up, Brew Crew? Opie here. Welcome back to my Brew City Garden. Hey, I'm glad you guys could make it back for this beautiful Tuesday morning. So there's not a whole lot of stuff going on in the garden on this particular day. We're just kind of in an in-between period. Everything's looking really good, but just not a lot of action, not a lot of anything really happening. So I wanted to take this time to bring up an issue that seems to be coming up fairly often for me lately. And that is bale gardeners, specifically new bale gardeners, having a lot of troubles with their straw bales. And it seems like every time I dig in to what may be going on, like 9 times out of 10, I find the very same problem. And they failed to condition their bales before trying to grow plants in them. And so the question is, can you successfully grow a straw bale garden without conditioning your bales? And the answer to that is no, absolutely not. Not without just a ton of struggles. And I'll, there might be one way that you could get away with it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But for the most part, no, you cannot grow in unconditioned straw bales. And there's a few reasons for that. And so the first reason is an unconditioned straw bale is nothing more than just straw. It's a dried carbon-based plant matter that has no nutritional value the way it sits. So yes, you might be able to put a plant in there and pour water on the bale, and the bale will hold the water and it will keep the plant alive for maybe a couple days or a few weeks even, maybe if you're lucky. But to get any successful growth, vigorous green growth, it's just not going to happen. And it seems like everybody's got the same complaint. Well, my plants are starting to yellow and they're not growing very well and they're looking droopy. What's going on? Well, essentially your plants are starving. They're getting the water they need, but they're not getting the nutrition that they need. So the conditioning process is a process of breaking the straw down so that it releases its macro and micronutrients for the plants to take up. So essentially what we're doing is we're going to add nitrogen to the bales for a series of about 10 days. And the bacteria that's already in the bales is going to take that nitrogen, it's going to feed on it and reproduce, and it's going to colonize that whole bale. And once the bale's colonized, the bacteria will start eating the straw, basically. That's what they're going to do. They're going to eat that straw, they're going to break it down, and what the bacteria excretes is going to be the broken down plant matter, the released macro and micronutrients that the plants can take up. So without that process, there's nothing there for the plants to take up. So now you've got plants in an unconditioned bale, and they're starting to yellow. They're not looking good at all. So their first inclination is, okay, we got to add fertilizer. The plant needs some food, which is correct. Yes, that plant needs some food. It needs some fertilizer. But there's one problem. When you fertilize that bale, what's going to happen is the plant's not going to be able to take up that fertilizer. As soon as the fertilizer enters the bale, the bacteria is there. It's waiting for it. And it's going to steal that fertilizer. So what's going to happen is your plants aren't going to get the fertilizer. The bacteria is going to steal the fertilizer. And it's going to start the conditioning process while your plants are in the bale. So what happens when plant matter breaks down and starts to compost? Well, it heats up. So now you've got your plants in the bale. You add fertilizer. The plants are still starving, but now the bacteria is eating all that fertilizer, and it's starting the conditioning process. It's warming the bale up. So not only is your plant starving, but now it's being cooked by the roots. And I think what really bothers me about this is the fact that, one, they didn't do their homework, which, okay, that's fine. Sometimes we screw up. I get it. Live and learn. But the other thing that really bothers me about it is the fact that, when something goes wrong, everybody wants to complain. They go to the internet, they go to straw bale gardening videos and forums, and they start bashing the process. They start bashing that gardening technique. And it's so disappointing because straw bale gardening has been probably the most successful gardening method I've ever used. And I've grown just all types of gardening methods, traditional in-ground, raised beds, planters, hydroponics, you name it. I've done it all. And straw bale gardening is either the best or up in the top tier of best methods for growing pretty much anything. Now that's provided that the bales are properly conditioned. So, you know, when people, they just start bashing straw bale gardening, when in fact it's their own fault. They did it wrong. They didn't do their homework. They did not condition their bales. And now all of a sudden, bale gardening is the worst thing in the world. It's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. And when people come to me with their problems, I want to help. I really do. I'm not here to bash anybody. I want to help you. But you've got to listen to me at the same time. You know, when I come to the conclusion that the bales weren't conditioned, all of a sudden they get really defensive about it. Well, I've done this before and it worked out fine. You know, what I say to that is if you have grown plants in unconditioned bales before, either A, I'm calling BS because it didn't really happen, or B, those bales technically were conditioned because maybe they sat outside and got weathered for several months before you decided to put plants in them. So technically, if you leave your bales out for a very extended period of time, they'll self-condition, basically. It's a much slower process, but the bales will break down themselves over time, you know, without actively conditioning them. But like I said, it just takes a very, very long time. And perhaps you planted in bales like that and had a very successful crop. And I believe that, absolutely. But I can almost guarantee you've never gone to get brand new fresh bales, stuck plants in them, and had a successful garden without conditioning those bales first. Now, back towards the beginning of the video, I had mentioned how maybe you could get away with growing in an unconditioned straw bale. And I haven't tried it only because really there's no point. But if you foliar feed your plants and just strictly foliar feeding your plants and keep that fertilizer off of the bale, you might be able to get away with having somewhat successful growth. But really that defeats the purpose. I mean, you might as well just grow your plant in a bucket of water, because essentially that's going to be the same thing. Only in a bucket of water, you don't risk cooking your plants if the fertilizer accidentally gets in the bucket. So if you kind of see what I mean there. So if you're going to take the troubles to go find straw bales, condition those bales. Don't try to grow without conditioning. It's just not going to work. All right, guys, so my main point here today is always condition your bales. Take a little extra time. It's not difficult. It takes about 10 days and some high nitrogen fertilizer. I've got a whole series of videos that literally takes you step by step through the whole conditioning process. And you know, you can't go wrong. If you follow my videos, you will absolutely win. Not to mention there's also some wonderful books out there. Namely some books by Joel Karsten called Straw Bale Gardens Complete. Those books are the top resource as far as I'm concerned. If you want something in your hand that shows you how to straw bale garden, go get Joel Karsten's books. They're awesome. All right, guys, if you know anybody who's struggling with their straw bales, if you're having any troubles, hey, feel free to get a hold of me. If you know somebody who's interested in straw bale gardening, you know what? Share my playlist, share my videos. They're there for you guys. They're there to help people. That's the only reason I do this. I just really enjoy showing people how the process works and to help them out. All right, guys, with all that, I want to thank you guys again for joining me here today in the Brew City Garden. I want you guys to have an amazing day. And until next time, we'll see you.